My name is Marissa, I'm 21 years old, and what I'm about to share is something I've never dared to admit out loud. Not to friends, not even in the privacy of my journal. I'm addicted. Not to alcohol. Not to drugs. No, my craving is far more secret, far more personal. I am utterly and hopelessly addicted to my vibrator. First, before we plunge deeper, I want to thank all my beautiful, loyal subscribers for sticking with Ella's infidelity stories. Your support means the world to me. Now let's dive into the real confession. It all began when I was just 18, a restless, lonely girl, navigating the confusing waters of adulthood, aching for something more, something I couldn't even name at the time. It was late one night, the kind of night when silence feels heavier than usual, pressing down on your chest. Curled up under a blanket in my dimly lit bedroom, with only the soft glow of my laptop illuminating my face, I clicked buy now on a small pink toy. Sleek, innocent-looking, almost delicate, like a secret only I would know. When it arrived, tucked discreetly in a plain brown box, I felt my heart race as I ripped it open, my fingers trembling with nervous excitement. That night, I locked my door, turned the lights low, and hesitantly pressed it against my skin. The moment it buzzed to life against me, it was like touching a part of myself I never knew existed. A shudder, a gasp, a sweet unraveling that left me breathless and wide-eyed in the dark. At first, I used it sparingly, once a week perhaps, as a forbidden treat after long, lonely days. But soon once wasn't enough. The craving deepened, grew roots inside me. It became every night, a ritual stitched into the fabric of my life. Like brushing my teeth, like drinking water, like breathing. Now sleep feels impossible without it. My body refuses to unwind. My mind won't stop spinning until I've surrendered to that familiar hum. I tell myself it's just routine, just a harmless comfort, but deep down, in the parts of myself I try not to look at too closely, I know it's more than that. It's a need, raw, aching, insistent. I crafted an entire secret world around my nightly ritual. I set the stage meticulously. Soft, sensual music playing low, my room bathed in the gentle glow of fairy lights strung along the headboard, the door firmly locked against the outside world. I silence my phone, pull the blankets up tight around me, and sink into the anticipation. It's just me and the delicate, intoxicating buzz of my little pink savior, guiding me into a place where the loneliness, the fear, the endless noise of the world melts away into blissful silence. And every night, as I fall asleep with a heavy, contented sigh, I wonder, is this freedom, or am I quietly, hopelessly caged? I know my body better than anyone else ever could. Every sensitive spot, every secret nerve ending. I know exactly how to touch myself, the perfect pressure to apply, the precise moment to arch my back and chase that overwhelming, exquisite release. Night after night, I bury my face into my pillow, muffling the soft, desperate sounds that slip from my lips. I grind against the sheets, hips rolling instinctively, whispering filthy, shameful things into the darkness, words no one else will ever hear, secrets meant only for the quiet, hungry air of my room. And when it's over, when my body finally gives out in a trembling, aching sigh, I just lie there, drenched in the stillness, satisfied, guilty, achingly alone. It was my private world, my hidden sin. A piece of me I never intended to share with anyone. At least, not until he moved in. His name is Ryan, my mother's new husband. A man she met on some dating app after a whirlwind of lonely Friday nights. In what felt like a blink, he was here, invading our home, sitting on our couch like he had always been part of the scenery, drinking from our mugs, laughing like he belonged to us. At first, I hated him, or maybe I just hated the idea of him. I refused to accept that some stranger could just step into our broken little world and pretend to patch it up. Especially not when it was my space he was stepping into, my fragile sense of normal he was threatening to tear apart. But then I saw him. Ryan wasn't what I expected. He wasn't awkward or desperate like I had imagined. No, he was danger wrapped in casual confidence, the kind of man who stole the air right out of the room without even trying. He was tall, towering even, with broad shoulders that stretched the fabric of his shirts just enough to make my breath hitch. His voice was deep, rich with a kind of lazy dominance that made goosebumps rise along my skin whenever he spoke. And God, his face. That chiseled jawline, sharp enough to wound. The faint flecks of gray in his dark hair that gave him a rugged, mature appeal, like some impossibly hot actor ripped straight from the forbidden pages of a romance novel I wasn't supposed to read. But it was his arms that undid me the most, strong, inked with dark, winding tattoos that peeked out from the sleeves of his shirts. His veins, thick and pronounced, mapped out trails along his forearms that made my mind wander places it absolutely shouldn't have. It was the kind of danger that didn't warn you with sirens or flashing lights. It crept up slowly, twisting inside you, curling low in your belly until you couldn't breathe, until you didn't want to breathe. And I knew, with a kind of terrified certainty, that my secret world was about to get a whole lot more complicated. It started so innocently. Just me lingering in the hallway, pretending I had some reason to pass by while he worked out in the garage. But it wasn't innocent at all, and I knew it. I stood there, hidden in the shadows, my heart hammering against my ribs as I watched him. His shirt was gone, tossed carelessly to the side, leaving his chest bare and gleaming with sweat under the harsh lights. Every muscle in his body flexed and rippled with every lift, every grunt and every movement. The sight of him, the raw, masculine power of him, wrapped itself around my mind and refused to let go. I tried to tell myself it was wrong, tried to pull my gaze away, but it was like gravity. I was helpless against it, against him. And it didn't stop there. He started to invade my thoughts, creeping into the quiet, vulnerable moments of my nightly routine. I'd stand under the warm spray of the shower, soap slipping down my skin, and it was his hands I imagined. Rough, calloused palms skimming my waist, fingers digging into my hips, pinning me down against the cold tile. I'd slip into bed and close my eyes, only to feel phantom whispers of his breath against my ear, filthy promises tumbling from his lips, turning my skin feverish with need. Even my little pink vibrator, once a simple comfort, transformed in my mind. It became bigger, harder, rougher, like him. Every pulse of it between my thighs felt sharper, hotter, more overwhelming. I could almost pretend it was his body pressing me into the mattress, his weight anchoring me there. That night, the night everything changed, started just like any other. I was restless, aching, needing an outlet for the unbearable tension coiled inside me. I sprawled out across my bed, legs shamelessly spread wide, the toy humming low and steady against my most sensitive spot. My back arched off the sheets, my mouth falling open with soft, desperate gasps. Eyes squeezed shut, mind lost to the feverish fantasies of him. And before I even realized it, his name tore from my lips. Raw, broken, reverent. Jake. My heart stuttered, a flicker of fear sparking in my chest, and I opened my eyes. And there he was, standing in my doorway, watching me. The world seemed to stop. The air between us crackled, thick and heavy with something primal, something I hadn't been ready for. Pure, unfiltered desire. Jake gripped the doorframe so tightly his knuckles went white, as if he was using every ounce of his willpower to keep himself from crossing the threshold. His eyes, those devastating gray eyes, were locked onto me, darkened, dilated, wild with something that sent a bolt of electric heat straight through my core. I should have stopped, should have pulled the blanket over me, pretended it was some terrible, shameful mistake. But I didn't, couldn't. Instead, I kept moving the vibrator against myself, the pleasure cresting higher with every trembling second. My pulse thundered in my ears, my chest heaving with ragged, desperate breaths. The tension in the room was suffocating, overwhelming, but I drank it in like it was the only thing keeping me alive. And his eyes. God, his eyes. They weren't just curious, or even just shocked. They were hungry, devouring me, consuming me, as if he'd been holding himself back for far too long, and now the dam had cracked. I had braced myself for shame, for regret. Instead, what bloomed inside me was something else entirely. Something wild, dangerous, intoxicating. My body clenched with need, a deep, throbbing ache radiating outward from my very core, hotter and heavier than anything I had ever felt before. And still I didn't look away. Neither did he. Jake stepped into the room, his broad, imposing frame eclipsing the soft glow of the hallway light behind him, casting the space between us in a heavy, trembling shadow. He didn't speak, he didn't have to. The rise and fall of his chest matched mine, both of us breathing too fast, too shallow, like we were caught in the same unbearable storm. I could see the war raging inside him, feel it radiating from every tense line of his body, and it mirrored the chaos thrumming inside me. My voice broke through the thick silence, fragile and trembling, a pitiful shield against the weight of what was happening. You shouldn't be here," I whispered, though even as I said it, a traitorous part of me ached at the thought of him leaving. Jake didn't answer immediately. He just stood there, devouring me with his eyes, his gaze dragging over every trembling inch of me. It was then, in that suspended electric moment, that I realized my hand hadn't stopped moving. Despite the fear, despite the shame clawing at the edges of my mind, my fingers still worked the toy against me, helplessly, hungrily, like my body was betraying me, pleading for him without words. The realization hit me like a wave crashing over my head, drowning me in guilt and confusion. What am I doing? This was Jake, my stepfather. A line that should never have been crossed, a boundary sacred and unbreakable. And yet, my body didn't care. It only cared about the wildfire he lit inside me, the delicious, agonizing tension sparking in every nerve ending. I felt like a violin string stretched to its breaking point, vibrating with a need that bordered on agony. A gasp tore from my throat, raw and desperate, as the pleasure built inside me, rising higher, threatening to consume me. And then he spoke, his voice low and rough, like it was being dragged from somewhere deep inside him. "Tell me to leave, Chelsea," he said. "Tell me to walk away, and I will." The words hung between us, a lifeline thrown across the widening abyss. My breath hitched painfully in my chest. He was giving me the power, offering me the chance to end this before it spiraled further. But even as I trembled on the edge, some dark, yearning part of me refused to reach for it. My fingers faltered but didn't leave the toy. My mind wasn't on the trembling movements of my hand anymore. It was on him, all of him, the way he stood there, so close and yet impossibly out of reach, a living embodiment of every forbidden dream I had fought so hard to suppress. Slowly, I lifted my head, forcing myself to meet his gaze. And when our eyes locked, the air between us cracked and sizzled. I saw it there, stark and undeniable. The same hunger, the same desperate, aching need that burned inside me, mirrored in the dark storm of his eyes. I don't want you to leave," I breathed, so softly it was almost a confession, a prayer. Jake's face shifted, the tension breaking just enough for vulnerability to bleed through. His lips parted as if he was about to say something, but no words came. Instead, he moved, one deliberate, torturous step after another, until he was standing right beside my bed. His scent washed over me in a dizzying wave, masculine and intoxicating, a mix of something wild and something heartbreakingly familiar. I inhaled him greedily, unable to stop myself, my senses greedily drinking in every bit of him. For a terrifying, beautiful moment, I thought he might touch me, thought he might claim me right there, right then, and pull me into the inferno raging between us. But he didn't. He stopped just inches away, close enough that the heat pouring from his body wrapped around me, teasing, tormenting. I could feel the weight of his gaze pressing down on me, so heavy it was almost tangible, dragging a helpless whimper from my throat. I shifted on the bed, the sheets cool against my fevered skin, the ache inside me sharpening into something unbearable, something that demanded to be answered. "Chelsea!" Jake's voice broke through the thick silence, a fragile whisper that trembled with the weight of the moment. His tone was so soft, so heartbreakingly careful, as if he was afraid that any wrong word would shatter the fragile connection between us. "Are you sure you want this?" I wanted to answer immediately, to scream yes, but deep down, doubt flickered like a dying flame. I wasn't sure of anything, only that every fiber of my being ached to feel him closer, to give in to the storm he stirred inside me. My lips parted, and though my heart raced in my chest, I found the courage to breathe the word that felt like a surrender. "Yes," I whispered, my voice trembling. My hands trembling too as they continued their restless, desperate movements over him. My body was no longer my own. It was ruled by need, by longing, by the insatiable pull toward him. "I'm sure," I said again, this time stronger, willing the words to bridge the gap between uncertainty and desire. His eyes darkened, a flicker of something primal sparking within them. And then, to my astonishment, he moved. Slowly, almost reverently. He reached for the hem of his shirt, fingers brushing over his own skin as he dragged the fabric up and over his head. Time seemed to slow, each second stretching out, thick with anticipation. The muscles of his abdomen flexed, a ripple of strength and raw masculinity that stole the air from my lungs. The shirt landed carelessly on the floor, forgotten, and I found myself mesmerized by the canvas of his body, the tattoos etched into his skin like dark promises, dangerous and beautiful all at once. My gaze traced every line, every shadow. It wasn't just the ink or the sculpted muscles that undid me. It was the way he moved, the quiet dominance in every subtle shift, the way he filled the room with his mere presence. I was utterly powerless, completely and willingly captive to the energy between us. Every fantasy I'd ever had about him paled in comparison to the overwhelming reality. I could already imagine the delicious weight of his body pressing me into the mattress, the feel of his skin against mine, the intoxicating loss of control. Then he looked at me, really looked at me, and his eyes, once a cool steel gray, burned with a dark, unrestrained hunger. "Are you sure?" he asked again, his voice rough, almost broken, as if holding back was costing him everything. This time there was no hesitation in me. "Yes, Jake," I said, my voice a hoarse whisper of need. "I'm sure." That was it. The moment the world tilted on its axis. The instant everything I thought I knew about myself, about him, about what I could endure, changed forever. Some part of me knew there was no going back, no undoing the choice I was making. But with the unbearable heat between us growing hotter by the second, consequences felt like distant echoes compared to the all-consuming urgency I felt for him. I needed him. Desperately. Recklessly. Jake stood there, bare-chested and beautiful. His chest rising and falling with deep, measured breaths, like he was fighting a losing battle against himself. But his eyes, they told the truth. He had already surrendered, just as I had. We were both standing at the edge of something vast, terrifying and exhilarating. He moved first, leaning forward with agonizing slowness. I held my breath, feeling the wild, erratic beat of my heart pounding against my ribs. Then, so gently it was almost painful, he reached out and brushed a stray strand of hair from my cheek. His fingers lingered, tracing the curve of my face with a tenderness that made me shiver from head to toe. Every nerve ending in my body was alive, on fire, craving more. "Jake," I whispered, my voice shaking with the force of everything I was feeling. "Touch me." He didn't answer with words. He didn't need to. Instead, he moved with deliberate patience, sitting down on the edge of the bed, never once breaking our connection. His hand slid down my thigh, a feather-light caress that made my breath hitch. His fingers explored my skin as though mapping sacred ground, memorizing every curve, every tremor. I arched into his touch without thinking, desperate for more, for anything. When his hand reached the waistband of my panties, he hesitated, his fingers pausing, trembling slightly against my skin. "If you want me to stop," he murmured, his voice thick with restraint, "now's the time." But stopping was the last thing I could ever want. Every cell in my body was begging, pleading, screaming for him. "Don't stop," I said, the words tumbling out in a desperate rush. "Please, Jake." His eyes flared with heat at my plea, and with a slow, devastating smile, he hooked his fingers into the thin fabric and pulled it down, stripping away the last barrier between us. I felt completely naked under his gaze, not just in body but in soul, like he could see the deepest, darkest corners of me, the parts one kept hidden from everyone else. His fingers brushed over my most sensitive skin, and I gasped, my thighs trembling around him. The tenderness in his touch was almost unbearable, a sweet, slow torment that left me aching for more. He leaned in closer, his lips grazing the shell of my ear, sending another shiver through my already trembling frame. "You've been dreaming about this, haven't you?" he whispered, his voice a dark promise. "Yes," I breathed, the confession falling from my lips like a prayer. "Every night." And this moment, was already more vivid, more breathtaking than anything my imagination had dared to conjure. I could feel the heat between us growing, the tension unbearable. He took his time exploring me like he wanted to memorize every reaction, every gasp, every moan, every shiver. And then I saw it. He stood up slowly, undoing his belt. His pants dropped and my eyes widened. My heart skipped a beat. He was bigger than I expected. Thick, heavy, intimidating. For a moment I froze. I had imagined this moment so many times in my fantasies, but now that it was real, I wondered if I could handle him. He saw the hesitation in my eyes and leaned down, kissing my neck, his voice low and reassuring. "I'll be gentle," he said, "but I want you to feel me." And I did. He moved between my legs, guiding himself with one hand while the other cupped my face. His eyes locked with mine as he pushed forward slowly, carefully. Gasp. The stretch was intense, almost too much. My body tensed. "Relax, baby," he murmured, his thumb brushing over my lips. "Let me in." Tried. I closed my eyes, focusing on his voice, his touch. Inch by inch, he filled me deeper than anything I had ever felt. I moaned, a sound I couldn't control. The pain was there, but so was the pleasure, twisting together, sharp and sweet. When he was fully inside me, we both paused, breathing hard. "You feel incredible," he groaned. I clung to him, my nails digging into his back as he began to move. Slow, deep strokes. Every motion sent shockwaves through me. I felt full, stretched, owned. It was wrong. Every part of it was forbidden. But it felt so right. His lips found mine, hungry and desperate. His hands gripped my hips, pulling me closer with every thrust. The headboard hit the wall, a steady rhythm that made the room feel smaller, hotter. "Jake, I can't," I gasped. "I'm going to." "Let go," he whispered. "I want to feel you come." And I did. My body tensed, then exploded with heat and pleasure that left me breathless. I cried out, holding on to him like I was falling. He followed seconds later, his grip tightening, his groan low and deep against my neck. When it was over, we collapsed into each other, our breathing ragged, our bodies tangled, our minds spinning. We didn't say anything for a long time because we both knew there was no going back. It started with my vibrator. Now I can't go a night without him. Jake, my stepdad. Even saying his name in my head sent shivers through me. Now, what we did should have made me feel ashamed. But instead it made me hungry, addicted. Every time he walked by, every time I heard the sound of his deep voice in the next room, I craved him. I needed him like air. After that night, everything changed. Our touches were no longer accidental. Our stares lingered longer. We found ways to be alone, to sneak around my mom like two guilty lovers caught in a dangerous game. But it didn't feel like a game. Felt like survival. Jake started coming to my room late at night. Quiet, careful. Sometimes he would just lie next to me, his big hands sliding up my thighs as I pretended to sleep, only to melt into his touch the moment his fingers found my sweet spot. Other nights, he would wake me up by whispering filth into my ear, his body already hard against me. He loved teasing me. "Tell me what you need, baby girl," he'd say, and I'd whimper, desperate for him. "Ooh, please, Jake. I need you." Every night with him became another layer of obsession, another memory burned into my skin. He stretched me in ways no man ever had, filled me so deep I could still feel him the next morning. But it wasn't just sex. There were nights he'd run a hot bath for me, washing every inch of my body with his strong hands before taking me against the steamy bathroom mirror. Or mornings when we'd sneak into the garage, me sitting on top of the dryer as he lifted my dress and slid into me without warning. It was dirty. It was wrong. But it was so perfect. I stopped using my vibrator. Not because I didn't want release, but because nothing felt as good as him. I was addicted to his size, his scent. His voice growling in my ear as he pinned me down and made me his. One afternoon, I came home early and found him in the living room, sweat glistening on his chest, fixing something with his shirt off. My eyes drank him in. He looked up and smirked. "Miss me already?" I walked over, dropping my purse, my heart racing. "You have no idea." He pulled me into his lap, his mouth crashing into mine. I could already feel him growing beneath me. I ground against him, needy and wet, and whispered, "Take me right here." That day, I rode him on the living room couch, moaning into his shoulder as he filled me again and again. His hands gripping my waist like I was the only woman he'd ever need. We didn't hear the garage door open. My heart nearly stopped. "My mom." Jake pulled me off him, tossing a blanket over us as I scrambled to fix my dress. We were breathless, flushed, seconds away from being caught. That was the day we realized how reckless we were becoming. But neither of us stopped. The danger just made it hotter. Even now, I don't know how long this can last, how long we can keep sneaking around, stealing moments between the lies. But I know one thing. I'm not addicted to my vibrator anymore. I'm addicted to Jake. His scent, his skin, his thick, hard length that ruins me every time. And deep down, I know he's just as addicted to me.